guys, it's been a while. I'm currently a design media arts student at UCLA, and I just want to show you guys my accepted portfolio video for UCLA DESBA, NYU Tisch, and Parsons School of Design, because I remember when I was applying to these schools, it was like super hard for me to find portfolios that I related to, because a lot of them that I found online were like drawing or painting or fine arts. But my portfolio was mostly geared towards like design and digital media and photography, so I wanted to show like that aspect of like the type of portfolio that was accepted. So I'll kind of take you through those applications and what I submitted for those portfolios and like show you some tips. I'll run you through the requirements for what I did for each of the sections. I believe the UCLA application prompts change every few years, but overall it stays pretty similar. So you have to start with like a questionnaire about like your high school and your academic history, which is like basically what you put in like the UC app anyways. And then you have to upload your transcript. And so after you do like these parts of the application, it asks you to list your 5 top creative influences. The hardest part about this section is probably the character limit. 500 characters is basically a paragraph, so it really only lets you state a tiny bit about each artist. And for this section, I recommend finding a variety of artists rather than like 5 that do the same type of work. Also, I would recommend keeping it simple and explain how it relates to your work. So I'll kind of like show you what I wrote. For example, I wrote like how this photographer inspires me to create shadows within my photos, and then like later in my portfolio you'll see like a lot of use of shadows. So like you see how it's like a sentence for each artist. It's like super short. I also wrote about how I was inspired by authenticity and spatial awareness, things like that. I kind of started by writing like a lot, and then I cut it down and simplified it. From there, just like kind of pick out like the key elements that you like from like the different artists and creative influences. It is totally okay to not have 5 creative influences off the top of your head right now. I definitely had to do a bit of research and make sure I was like selecting specific different artists, but like you totally like have the flexibility to do like research beforehand. Yeah, so then after that, you have the portfolio section, which consists of 3 sections: the self-portrait section, the word project, and then the unique works. So I'll start with the self-portrait. So I can just like kind of show you what I did for that. So I focused on how change shapes my identity. You can pause and read it, but basically this work is called Foil to Survive. It's a digital photograph, like a physical self-portrait of myself, but basically it's about like integration and uncertainty, which I showed through like aluminum foil and a reflection within myself. Your self-portrait, something that's like really important to keep in mind is it doesn't have to have you in it. I think it's actually really good to have it be more conceptual and representative and have a story behind it rather than it be like a drawing of yourself or like, you know, I feel like you guys, you know, like what the vibe is for that. Although I did like do a physical self-portrait, but like you can't see myself in it. And I just mainly focused on like the concept rather than like me being it, like it being like me physically, you know? Like I don't think I even talked about like me being like in the frame. Maybe I did, but okay. Next part is the word project. So every year they pick a new word, and for my year it was halt. So basically they have like a super long, like I don't even know, they had like a super long description of halt or something. But basically I also did a self-portrait for this, which I kind of focused on like the absence of editorial reach in our world, and just like because I was like super involved with journalism at the time in high school, so that's like something that like was important to me. But for all of the prompt sections, I really recommend like thinking outside of the box and connecting it to something broader, and maybe something like related to your life or like to yourself that's like significant to you. And also, it doesn't have to be super apparent what the word is from your artwork. Like if you didn't know that this like if you just looked at this work, you might not have guessed that it was haul. But that's where like your description comes in. Like that part, like you can really have like a punchy like explanation, and that can like really help like strengthen your work. Then the last part was the unique work section. So this is basically you have to choose 5 to 8 images of your best work. Like they said, quality is more important than quantity. For this section, I recommend picking a variety of different mediums, if you have that, or like just your strongest works. For me, I unfortunately mainly did photography because that's all I had. And that's all I kind of was good at in high school, and I knew that these were my best works. But regardless, like I tried to show like different like types of photography, or different like aspects and like kind of skill sets that I had with photography. So I did like some double exposure and like superimposing images, and then I had a photography like collage with like a painting over here. And you can just kind of see like the different like skills that I used like through these photographs. I can show them in more depth too. So we have this one, this one. And again, for the unique works, it really only lets you put 50 characters, which is basically like a sentence, which was super, super difficult to do. But just like give it your best shot. Like I would say like, say like what medium it is, and then say like what the message is, or like anything like that's like important for like that part of it, I guess. Okay, so for NYU Tisch, I applied to the photography and imaging program. Basically you submit the Common App application and then your portfolios through Slide Room. For the portfolio, you have to submit 15 to 20 images, and 10 of them must be on a single theme. This part was quite tricky, just like thinking of the theme. I didn't make any new images for my portfolio for the theme. I just kind of looked at all my work together and then decided, okay, like I decided like a certain few topics that I could pick as my theme. And I kind of saw like reoccurring ideas within my photos, which is how I came up with my theme. And then there's a questionnaire and short essays. So for the short answer questions, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just like talk about the courses you've taken, your skills, and then kind of like introducing yourself, like who you are, and then before I get into the portfolio part, I'll talk about like the themed portion. I guess I can read it. So the themed portion of my portfolio is called Existential, like kind of like existential. So for each photograph, it kind of captures the story of an individual trapped in an undefined space and situation. The exit refers to their desire to find a way out or an absence of the way out, and the suffix "ential" refers to the defining existential moment for the individual in the photograph. I used a wide variety of elements to artistically demonstrate the subjects, environment, and their story. Whether unstaged or staged, I captured a series of emotions through experimenting with light, perspective, shadows, contrast, pattern, and value. I also used different photographic techniques and materials to enrich the feelings of introspection within my work. My theme sheds light on greater importances in our world and how it's easy to become submerged with one's personal space and lose a sense of reality, as well as suppression of power, self-suppression, and inner conflicts. A large portion of my work is portrait photography, many of which are self-portraits, and I strive to capture individuals and their interaction with their surrounding environment through experimental photography techniques. So that's kind of like a gist of the themed portion of my section, and then I can go into the images. So these are the images. So we see cornered by light, obviously like the exit, like being trapped. For all the additional details I kind of talked about, like the idea behind the photograph or like the message, and then like I would talk about like if it was a self-portrait or not. The next one, Midnight Swell, you can tell this is the same type of vibe with the lighting and the light pattern. Blindsided, the subject being like anonymized, and kind of like a barrier that I used with this photography. First Amendment, suppression of journalists, same thing that I did for my UCLA portfolio. I kind of put a twist on it. A lot of the artworks are have been repurposed for different themes, which is something that I recommend. You don't have to make all new works for your portfolio. Reliving Yesterday's Doubt. This was like a slow exposure, double exposure. Yes, with a slow shutter speed. I'm forgetting my photography terms. But kind of like I wanted to talk about like awareness and self-consciousness, and kind of same thing with like exiting one's body. Next one, escaping confinement. Same type of vibe, dark setting, monochrome, emptiness. She's navigating herself. For a lot of these photos, like it's a lot about like you can put a twist on it. Like these were not like the original purposes of the photography pieces, but like for every theme you can totally alter the story behind the photograph. That's totally fine. Meeting the alter ego, another self-portrait, kind of like just connecting to another dimension of oneself. Again, like exiting one's body. Next one, dreaming of a clear sky. I kind of like brought these two images together. And then we have heavy drops and deflecting reflections, which you saw in the UCLA one. So yeah, these all go into the theme of existential. I hope you can like kind of understand like the link that I made between these pieces. But yeah, I guess I can go into the next part. These are just the 5 additional photos. For these, I really tried to not do portraits because I already did portraits in my last. Like basically all of these were portraits. So I just chose my like additional best works. So we have this one, Baywatch, the green light, again the one about climate change, and then this photograph, which I won an award for. I thought that was like good to add in. And then this one I think we added. I'm not really sure. I don't know if this is an updated document, but yeah, those are all the work. Okay, so then continuing on with the essays, you have to talk about a photographer that like you consistently return to, that's like kind of like an example for you. I had so many. I just picked one that I felt that related to the work that I did. So kind of a lot of my photography worked around like shadows and stuff. So I really wanted to like have that be the same with the photographer that was like kind of my influence. So I chose Alexander Rodchenko, and I talked about this artwork of his. Yeah. And then this question was a bit tricky. It says, what does it mean to make photo/image-based art now in the 21st century? I feel like it's really hard to make this, your answer to this question, like very unique, because a lot of people are going to say like, oh, our world is so like techie now, like so much social media, and it's like, you know, yeah, you can pause and read this, but yeah. And then it talks about what academic subjects interest you. So basically I talked about journalism because I did photojournalism in high school, but you can really talk about like anything. It doesn't need to be related to like photo and imaging and art. And then something you'd like to add about yourself. I just talked about like a few of my extracurriculars that I did. Yeah, that's all. It requires you to do a portfolio of 8 to 12 images, along with the Parsons Challenge, which has been around for a while, which is basically like you make a new work inspired by a theme within a piece that was already in your portfolio, and then you have to write like an essay about it, describing your ideas and kind of like all of that. So there was also a Why Parsons essay along with like the portfolio. I'll show you. So for the 8 to 12 pieces, these are ones that we've already seen in my UCLA and my NYU portfolio, but I'll kind of show them again. So I just picked like my strongest works. And for the Parsons Challenge, I chose to use a photograph as my original artwork and then created this collage based off of it. Basically, it explores the theme of apprehension and restlessness, and I kind of decided to break my comfort zone with this artwork and make a collage rather than like use another photograph. I really recommend like thinking outside of the box, using different mediums. They really like I don't think they care like what you make. It's just like you really need to have a good like thought process, and as you see, like you have to write a whole essay about it, and your essay can really help like back up your work. Like as you see, like these are two pieces that I already had like before applying, like, and I just like kind of wrote like a bunch about it. But yeah, I'll like let you stop and pause if you want to read it. That's all for the Parsons one. Quick background change, I'm currently in Florence, Italy, studying abroad, but that's all for the video. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I'm more than happy to help with your guys' portfolios because I know how stressful it can be and how tedious the process is. Yeah, good luck!